Hi there, I'm Kathy Barker from Software Solutions, and you're watching the first of a collection of videos about Microsoft Power BI and with particular reference to the expression language DAX. In this collection of videos, I'll be showing you the power of DAX to create formulas and functions. But in order to demonstrate this, I'm first of all asking you to open up the file called DAX Workshop Data Model. So I'm just going to go File and I'm just going to go Open Report. I'll be able to browse for the report that I'm after. And if I look on my desktop, I can see that I've got a file called DAX Workshop Data Model. So I'm going to open up this particular Power BI file. I now want to preserve the original file, so I'm going to go File, Save As, and save a copy of this report as DAX Workshop Data Model /current. And this is my current copy, and save. Now this particular Power BI file is getting its data from 3 Excel workbooks, and what we need to make sure is that they are being seen and being pulled through correctly. So I'm just going to go into Transform Data, which fires up my Power Query. When I go into my Power Query, I can see this yellow panel is basically saying that it's having difficulty tracing or locating the data source. I'll then click the Data Source Settings button, and these are the 3 spreadsheets that this particular Power BI file relies on, and you'll have access to these. So I'm going to click the first one. I'm going to change the source and tell it where it will get that particular file from, and I'll browse. And I'll just locate that on my machine. You'll have to locate it wherever it is on your machine. So don't take the location so much, it's more the process. And so there's the first file there, and okay. I then click the second file and I go change source and just check that it can find the second file, which is called temp data, and the third file. So click the change source, browse and locate those 3 spreadsheets. Now what I want to do is refresh, so I'll click the refresh preview button. And now I can clearly see the data, and that yellow banner has disappeared. So now that I've correctly connected to the data sources, I can click close and apply. So it goes back to Power BI and applies those changes to the Power BI file. And I allow it to complete its job. Now for looking at these DAX functions, what I'm going to do is on the left hand side ask you to choose the data view. So I click the data button. What you can see here is the data that resides in the customers query, but I can click on date, internet sales, product, etc. So those 3 spreadsheets provide us with these queries. Now the first function I want to look at is when I want to create a formula that joins 2 or more columns together. And I'm going to use something called the ampersand. Now the ampersand is the name of the character that sits above your 7 on your keyboard. And I'm going to use the ampersand in the customers table. So I click on customers and I want to create a new column. I want to create a calculated column. So I hit this new column button here. It's available under table tools, but it's also available under home, new column. Now immediately my formula bar lights up and it's expecting me to put the name of a column. So I want to call this column full name, and notice I'm allowed spaces. After you type the name that you want your new column to have, you follow it with an equals. Now at this point I could hit square bracket and just choose a field called first name, which is actually in this list. But I think it's really important that we qualify any references to columns and say exactly what query that column comes from. So I'm going to backspace the square bracket, and instead I'm going to put a single quote or an apostrophe. This then allows me to choose a particular table and a particular field, and so because I'm in the customers table, these are the fields in the customers table. From the customers table, I'd like to choose the first name. So I arrow down, and I could either double click this option here, but I actually find it's more controlled if I just press tab. So I've chosen the first name. Now I want to use my ampersand. So I go Shift 7 and there's my ampersand. I want to join the first name with a space, and a space is considered text. Therefore, it must be placed within double quotes. So double quote, space, double quote. So at this point in time, I'm joining two things together. I'm joining the column called first name, which can be found in the customer's table or query, with a space, which is considered text. I then add another ampersand because I want to join that to a third thing. So I press the single quote or the apostrophe. It brings up the customer's table and all the fields in the customer's table. I down arrow because alphabetically I'm looking for last name, and there it is. Where's the last name gone? It's actually at the top by the looks, because it's got a space in front of it, which is interesting. So I'm going to press tab to accept that particular last name column. And that's my function. I want to basically create a new column called full name, which is to grab the first name column from customers, add a space inside of double quotes, and add the last name. So I press enter. And there you see my full name column. Okay. So a couple of things there. Type the name of the column, follow it with an equal sign, press the C apostrophe to bring up a list of options, and either double click or press the down arrow and press tab to select items. Now some of you may be wondering why we don't use the concatenate function to join things together, and instead we've used the ampersand. The concatenate function exists both in Excel and exists in Power BI. The only problem with the concatenate function within DAX and within Power BI is it only allows you to join two things, and what we're actually joining are three things. So let me just show you how it would work, but how it is also limited. I'm going to edit this function here. Straight after the equals, I'm going to type CON, and these are all the functions that begin with CON. And I can actually choose concatenate. And there it is there. So I down arrow and I press tab. It gives me an open bracket, and then notice up here in the description that the concatenate function is looking for the first text comma and the second text. And it says here that it joins two text strings together into one text string. So I can't have my space or I can't have my last name. One of these things has got to go. So maybe I just choose to take out the space and put a comma. And at the end, I can close the bracket. So this concatenate function is going to join two things together, the first name and the last name, and enter. And it's worked successfully. The only problem is it hasn't given me what I wanted. And what I wanted is to have a space between the two, not just one long string with no space between the first name and last name. So concatenate is a little bit limited actually, and I don't use it that often. I tend to use the ampersand when I want to join more than two strings together. But there is another option, and that's a function called COMBINEDVALUES. Let me just edit this function yet again. I'm going to take out concatenate, and I'm going to type COM, and there is a combine function. In fact, I'm looking for combined values. I press tab to accept it. And the combined value functions uses a common delimiter between each expression. So if you just want a space always between your strings, then you would put double quote, space, double quote, and a comma. That is your delimiter. And even if I click on that, it was the delimiter. Now between each item, that is first name and last name, is basically going to combine the first name and the last name, and it's going to put a space between each. And so I'll press enter. And that is effectively giving me a full name, a first and a last name with a space in between. And so that's how the combined values functions work. So if you want to join things together, I truly believe the ampersand is actually the best way to do it. But you've seen a couple of alternatives. Now the other thing is sometimes we want to convert the text into a specific case. Perhaps I want to convert this to lowercase, in which case I click in front of combined values, and I'm going to combine this function with another function called lower. And I'll do an open bracket, and here it shows me that it converts all the letters in a text string to lowercase. And all you do is have lower on the outside, and everything else goes within inside of these brackets. So I need a closed bracket on the end. When I press enter, then all of that has been converted to lowercase. But what if I wanted an uppercase? then I simply double click lower and I'll replace it with the word upper and tab and enter. And now I've got all my full names showing in uppercase. So DAX provides you with a function called lower, a function called upper, a function called COMBINEDVALUES, and a function called CONCATENATE. But it also uses ampersand to join things together.